This is episode 17 of Youthful Perspectives. I'm your host, Mason Beerbaum. My guest today is the 19th State Auditor of Minnesota, Julie Blaha. Our conversation ranged from an overview of the State Auditor's role and the importance of local government to dissecting her leadership philosophy and explaining the importance of relationships in the field of politics. State Auditor Blaha's enthusiasm and energy, paired with her immense knowledge of her profession, made this conversation both enjoyable and educational. I hope you feel the same way. And now, here is State Auditor Julie Blaha. What is the State Auditor of Minnesota?
I am so glad you're starting with that question, because if you're listening to this, chances are you don't know, and that's not on you. The state auditor's role is different in every single state. In 19 states, they're elected. In the rest, they are appointed. Not every state has them. Some have legislative auditors. Some have comptrollers. Some have treasurers. Some have combinations of that. In Minnesota, the state auditor oversees primarily local government expenditures. Mm-hmm. In Minnesota, we run a lot of our programs through local government, even more than a lot of other states. So even if something is passed at the Capitol, they could pass something on the social safety net at the Capitol. It is implemented by a county. Mm-hmm. They can pass a public safety initiative at the Capitol, but it's implemented in City Hall. In roads, townships run 55,000 miles of our roads in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So we have a really big interest in that local government level. So my focus is on cities, counties, towns, soil and water districts, port authorities, school districts, the things that happen really close to home. And so to watch over that, I have three functions. We do examinations. So audits, investigations, legal compliance checks, all of those are examinations. And that's the biggest part of my work, is have us being a third party coming in and checking to see if you're doing what you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. Then we also, though, provide direct support because we want you to be successful. Ultimately, our goal is not to make news by finding a problem that you have. Our job is to keep you out of the news by preventing that problem in the first place.
Gotcha.
So the less you see me in the news, the better I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And then our final role is analysis. In the course of our work, we collect a lot of data. And so we put that data together in reports with some analysis and some context and give it back so people can make decisions based on facts. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, the whole reason for doing that is to protect that local layer of government, because that, I would say, is the place that preserves our freedom to make decisions in our own communities. Mm-hmm. Things can get locked up in Washington, D.C. They can get paralyzed in St. Paul. Local government doesn't have the luxury of an endless fight. They mm-hmm. have to get things done. Because if local government locks up, we don't get a roads plowed. You're going to be stuck in your driveway for 3 months. Your kids aren't getting to school. Your lights won't turn on. Mm-hmm. The ambulance won't come. So this level of government is super high stakes, and also, though, often the least partisan, super close to home. So it is, I'd say, one of the most powerful levels of government we have. So I'm really proud of the fact that my office helps protect that level. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, again, we want you to be able to make your own decisions close to home.
That's great. And I think a lot of people don't understand the importance that it comes with their local government. I think that's something people don't really think much about, but yes. It's the more, obviously the headlines you hear is the gridlock that you find in D.C. or some of the disagreements you find.
That drama is fun to report on, right?
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
Now, if people, though, if you don't think, though, that local government has that level of drama, you have never been to a city council meeting where they are considering chickens in town.
Yeah.
I got to tell you what, if you ever have a chance to get a chickens in the city, go to one of those meetings, mm-hmm. you go to that meeting. Mm-hmm. It'll change your idea about what's red and what's blue, mm-hmm. and about partisanship too. I think we all assume every issue has a red side and a blue side. And we've really done that through the media. As politicians, we've perpetuated that. But if you go to a local government thing, there's a whole bunch of issues that haven't been staked out mm-hmm. by the red and blue teams. So you're going to go and when you talk about chickens in town, you're going to see Democrats and Republicans against it that you have never worked together on any issue. You're going to see firefighters and police officers and sometimes very conservative, liberal people working together who've never worked together on the same issue. I see that with, again, chickens in town. That can get really heated, though, too. So bring your popcorn, get comfortable. that's a wild meeting generally.
Yeah.
And if you've ever lived next door to a rooster, you get it. Okay.
Yeah,
it is high
absolutely.
stakes because if you're never going to sleep again if the person next door has a rooster and you haven't figured that out. But roundabouts, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
The ditch fund. How are we going to handle keeping our local hospital open? There are a lot of places for big agreement locally. And so it's a super exciting thing. And it is everything that happens in the world comes home.
Yeah.
When I was young, I thought, I'm going to go do politics and I'm going to do the cool stuff. I'm going to DC. I'm going to do all that big federal work. That's where the action is. Well, as I went through my life, I realized, you know what? That stuff matters. But the stuff that actually changes my life day to day is the stuff my city council's doing and my county commissioners are doing. And so that moved me back to how important local was. So as I've gone through, I got to say, I wish I'd known that earlier, because if you care about the environment, be a soil and water commissioner. Mm-hmm. You will impact local water quality, and all of those environmental issues hit hard when you're talking about water treatment. Yeah. If you care about public safety and criminal justice, real justice, get involved in your city, because they run the police department. Right. They're on the ground going to affect people in your neighborhood every day. If you care about infrastructure, you can watch Infrastructure Week play out ad nauseum in Washington, D.C., or you can be on your planning and zoning board and actually get something built in your community. So I really wish that that I'd known that sooner, that if you really care about getting something done, start local. Yeah.
I think also with local politics, which I find refreshing, I grew up, like we were talking earlier, I'm from a small rural town, Albany, Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And the mayor for our town was actually my boss at one point when I worked on the grounds crew for the local golf course. His name's Tom Kasner. And he said people would go up and ask him, they're like, so are you a Democrat or a Republican? He's like, I'm with whatever solution I think is the best solution. And I don't look at it in a partisan lens, especially when it comes to local governments like that and small scale. It's not left and right issues. It's just what is the best solution to solving whatever issue it happens to be, which I find quite refreshing. Because
you can get really pragmatic. I love how, that's exactly it. And you can get to a place where if you can stay really pragmatic and if you can stay really open-minded and if you can avoid all that left and right stuff, you can also preserve it as a nonpartisan space. Mm-hmm. Now, there are going to be partisan issues that come in. I think as a Democrat, I do approach local government issues differently than a lot of Republicans do. Mm-hmm. However, I'd say one of my biggest compliments recently, I was talking to someone considering running for this office who's a Republican. And at one point he said, you know what? We always wondered why you weren't a Republican, these local government people that I work with. And I thought, oh, that's quite a compliment. Right. I did say, well, look at any of my social positions, and you'll get it real quick, because I'm not even close to centrist when it comes to people's rights. But it was still that idea of, like, even as a good lefty as I am, I was president of the National Organization for Women. Mm-hmm. I was a hardcore feminist, and I still am a hardcore feminist, but all of these things. And yet I absolutely found plenty of places to work across the aisle and to work with people, some of whom even have positions that I find abhorrent. Mm-hmm. I also know that they find my positions abhorrent. But honestly, we've got to keep that hospital open, or people are going to die. And you can find a way through that when you realize how important the work is.
Mm-hmm. I think also another aspect with local government too is it's the easiest to get directly involved in. Whereas if you're really interested in like federal politics, you can campaign for a federal official in Minnesota, but that's not as easy per se when it comes to like a state office, or if you want to do for your local mayor or all those other positions that you listed off, it's a lot easier to get directly involved in the nitty-gritty aspect of politics, which is one thing I think people don't realize as well too, because like we were talking about earlier, Washington gets the headlines, St. Paul gets the headlines too, but those local units of government, just as important, if not
and they
more
get
important.
It done. Oh, that's our thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Washington and St. Paul get the headlines, but local gets it done. Mm-hmm. We're going to write that down.
Absolutely.
I'm going to use that.
There we go.
Because that's exactly true. And I think that that's why it's so important to protect that level. What I see a lot of times are people who are really, they might be new to organized politics. Mm-hmm. They've always had ideas. They have good values. And they have a solution, say, for veteran homelessness. So they get on their city council, they help work out funding for a different kind of housing. And that now my job is to make sure that once they pass it, and we all celebrate when something passes, but you're a mile away from it actually being real. My job is to make sure that this idea now picks up the funding it was supposed to pick up, picks up the procedures it was supposed to pick up, picks up the rules it was supposed to pick up, and actually comes to fruition with some fidelity to the original idea. And that's a really important place to protect. It's where you go from idea to reality. And if you don't have that place, the best idea in the world won't do a thing.
Yeah.
And so this is important. Also, if we don't protect that place, that person who had the best idea in the world is going to get discouraged and disengaged.
Yeah.
And so if we want people to stay engaged, to stay connected, they have to see that their ideas become real in a fair and accurate way.
Yep.
So I love protecting that place.
Yeah, and that's one of my biggest concerns when it comes to hyperpartisanism that we have in America today is it can turn off a lot of good people from getting involved in politics in the first place too, because it's such a nasty environment to get involved in sometimes too. But if you go in it with a good heart like you're describing right here, and you can make a lot of good change.
Well, and that's exactly it. And there are people, let's be clear, that are very intentional about that. You have people in power who do not want regular people involved. If you're super rich, you kind of don't want a lot of teachers in politics. If you're a billionaire, you don't want somebody who has a job where they're paid hourly. If you are buying a boat for your yacht, you probably don't want someone who grew up broke to be in office. So one way to do that is make it gross, make it nasty, because we know that women are less likely to run if they perceive it as nasty. People of color are less likely to run, and so some of this is absolutely intentional. And so if it's nasty, and you think it's nasty, and you think I don't want to be part of it, well, somebody really wants to keep you out. They're afraid that you will do something important. So if you feel that way, you're exactly who we need.
Yep.
It's really ironic. But if you right now feel like, wow, politics are disgusting, somebody is afraid of you and somebody doesn't want you there. And you know what? Keep that in mind when you decide whether you should be there or not.
And when it comes to your role as a state auditor, how would you describe your leadership style within the office that you hold? Oh,
my goal is to be the kind of leader that I wished I was working with when I was a labor leader. So I did as the president of a teachers union in Anoka Hennepin. I think about the people that I worked with, the different principals that I worked with, the different superintendents, the different administrative staff. And what I saw was the people that actually went into a discussion with a truly open mind, which is really hard to do. I've been on blue ribbon panels and task forces and all of that. And you can tell within about 15 minutes of the first meeting whether this is a real working group or if it's like, I've got an idea, we're going to get this group together because the legislature wanted that. I need you all to rubber stamp this and let's get out of here.
Right.
And that is dangerous. And so my job is to go in and say, you know what? I do believe the people genuinely have the best ideas. The people closest to whatever issue have the real solution, and trying to live that value out. So we started up a group to pull people together to talk about auditing and talking about local oversight. And so we brought in people from the auditors from the private sector, our people from the public sector, people from state government, cities, counties, towns. And we all came together to say, all right, are the right people getting audits? We have another kind of thing. It's called an AUP. That's like a focused, a narrower focused audit. And are those working? And I had a legislator actually say, wow, if you do this, are you ready for the results? What if they suggest something you don't like? It's like, that is okay. That is ideal.
Absolutely.
In fact, ideally, we suggest something together that none of us thought of alone. That is the ideal. So I went into this and we truly have come to some ideas that I didn't expect. And my greatest compliment in that meeting was, again, a really very experienced Politico who said, I got to compliment you. I came in, I don't know what you were trying to get us to do, but I realized you actually weren't. We really are coming up with this as a group. And I got to say, that about made me cry. That was exactly what I want. But there's some real, talk about courage. You got to be open up to the idea that, the idea might be, hey, you're not the one we need for this. Come up with an idea where, you know what, you're not the messenger for this. Or that idea you thought was great actually was probably the worst. I came out of the group, this audit and reporting group, ARG for short.
Yes.
I'm trying to make this a whole pirate thing, and it's not sticking. But anyway, it was so freeing to be able to really know that I didn't have to have all the ideas coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a little scary knowing I could find out that I've been wrong about everything, and I was wrong about a few things. I was wrong about quite a few things. I would say all of us kind of found out that we all, I think everybody on that committee changed their mind about something by the end.
Yeah.
And I think that is so powerful. And now we're going to go enact that stuff. We're going through and actually putting those ideas into practice as we go to the legislature and talk about audit thresholds or language or types of audits and all of those things, because we've come to a place where we kind of have a basic ideology that we share, a more scientific way to look at it.
Yeah.
We kind of decided which metrics actually get at risk. And so we've developed some tools to say, all right, instead of just guessing on a number, let's actually find a real number.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, one of my crusades is against something, I know it's a little bit spicy for your show, so I'm going to try to be careful, but it's still very technical. A technical term I use about numbers that you research and find out you don't know where they came from. Like we were looking at, here's a very specific example, the threshold for which fire relief associations need to have an annual full financial audit. All right. And so the number used to be 500,000 or 750,000. So we asked, it's like, well, where did that number come from? What's that based on? And again, I'm a former math teacher, so I'm hoping that it's going to be there's a demand curve, there's a couple lines that cross at this perfect place that shows the balance between risk and return. And someone said, "Well, I think we got it from the Department of Ag's bill." It's like, "Oh, okay." So I talked to them. I think we went to charitable gambling's example. Okay, well, where did you get it? I think it was a federal number. I'm like, "Oh no, this is one of my least favorite numbers," and they would be called. I'm going to say this on there. In a way, I don't even mind being bleeped. An ass number.
An ass.
Because that's where it came from.
Yeah,
somebody's ass. And so when I find an ass number, that's a place for us to say, all right, let's turn this into a more scientific number.
Yep.
Let's figure out if we're just grabbing these, then it's somebody going by their gut. And then, a first-year legislator, $1 million is a lot of money. A 40-year legislator, $1 million is couch change.
Yeah.
Right? So neither of those things can be, your gut is not a great not a well-calibrated tool to calculate that. So we looked at, okay, well, what should we do? We should look at coverage. Let's look at if we have an audit threshold set and say $1 million, well, we're still auditing 95% of all the funds that are out there. But it will drop off these tiny entities because right now we don't have enough people in public finance in the whole country to really get everything done. So let's drop the low-risk people off so we can make sure the high-risk people get what they need. So, yeah, we still keep 95% of the people under funds under audit, but we drop off like 18 entities. Perfect. That reduces workload, does not reduce risk by increase risk by much.
Yeah.
In everything, there's always a trade. There's never a full win-win. Everything that you might reduce workload may increase risk. Every time you decrease risk, you may very much increase cost. There's always a trade. There's always a balance.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to get away from these gut check numbers and actually build something based on some science so we can have a discussion based on where do we really believe the risk lies.
And one thing that struck me when you're describing that role is it seems like one thing that you value is just being open-minded and listening to people at the table and going in knowing that you don't have the answers to everything and having that be okay.
Oh, and that's the thing. That was the most important thing that I think I learned as far as running for stuff. I think like many women, I have really healthy imposter syndrome. Oh yeah. My little imposter voice. Oh, she's loud and she knows what she's doing. And no matter what I'm elected to, I still feel like do I know that? I'm like, I am the state auditor. I have to remind myself sometimes. But what I think I was always worried about was I don't know how to fix this. And it's like, that is not your job. And in fact, if you're somebody who knows how to fix this, you may not want to be the elected leader. If you're going to be the idea person, great. An elected leader is an implementation person. Yep. Your job is to turn an idea into policy. You bridge that space. So when you realize I don't need any ideas, I can go in here and ideally I don't have many ideas. So when I first started here, the first thing I did was do one-on-ones with every staff member. Every single staff member, from someone who had been here for a week and a half, who was doing an entry-level job, to the people who had been here over 40 years. And and just these half-hour meetings. And now I still do like 15-minute check-ins a couple of times a year if I can. And I'm in the middle of them right now, in fact. And these one-on-one meetings, all the ideas were there. I got every idea that I have worked on here came up during those meetings. Mm-hmm. Because these are the pros, they live with it. And so you're not necessarily the person has to have all the ideas. You need to be able to harvest the ideas.
Yep.
You need to be able to grow them. You need to know which ones to pick. And then you need to get a market. I could really work this egg metaphor hard if I want to.
I like the way, yeah.
Well, as a teacher, I had a whole course on metaphor. And I love metaphor. I'll run a metaphor into the ground. So,
I'm not opposed to anything like that.
I love that.
So, yeah.
But this idea of, when I realized that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have to know everything. Mm-hmm. And I think particularly we socialize women that you don't know enough to do things. Mm-hmm. In the United States, women have a long history of being socialized like that. So that voice is in your head. I don't care how hardcore a feminist you are. I don't care how woke you are, any of that stuff. It's in there, and you kind of got to know it. If you've lived in America as a woman for more than 20 minutes, you got that voice. And we're not the only ones. You may, some of the men listening have that voice too, and some of the, there are a lot of other people listening that also have it. But when you realize that you don't have to have all of the answers, your job is to just find the answers and make them real. That really is freeing. Mm-hmm. And you could go into something saying, I don't have to know it all. But, and so when you run for office and someone asks you a question you don't know, that's always terrifying. When I would talk to teachers and try to get them to lobby, it's like, well, what if I don't know the answer? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you don't need to know the answer. If you're lobbying, you need to have a story.
Yep.
Your job is to bring the stories, and the person that's with you, you can bring a pro with you and then go find the answers. You never have to have the answer in the moment. You can always say, you know what, I'm going to look at that, but then you could shift to what are your values, right? Just say, well, here's how I'm going to assess that. I'll look into these options. I'm going to be looking for something that actually gets at the risk. I'm going to be looking at something that is a reasonable cost. And I'm going to get at something that actually is supported by the people in that actual neighborhood. So you could talk about how you're going to make a decision is I would say to a voter, probably more important than what you'd actually do.
Yeah.
So you don't have to know everything. And it's ironic. The people who know the least seem to be the most comfortable hopping in front of a mic and talking. And those of us who know a lot are often the ones that are really stressed out about that. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I don't know enough. And it's like, ignorance is bliss. I mean, if you don't know what you don't know, man, I can see how you can have a lot of confidence. But also, the people who are listening, if you feel like, oh, I don't know enough for this, okay, you might be who we need because you actually know what you don't know. And the alternative is if you don't run, then the guy who thinks he knows everything and doesn't know anything is going to get the job. And we can't have that.
And also, when you don't know anything or you don't know enough about a subject, that makes you more open to hearing other people's perspectives
Ideally.
too. Instead of someone who comes in with these preconceived notions or has expertise in a certain field and it's gone by this way for this many years, we're going to stick to that. I feel like people that are that don't have a set idea on a certain thing, they might come out there with being more open to different ideas.
Okay,
too.
you talk about, that's a really good point you're making. I'm kind of speaking to the idea of you don't have to have all the solutions, but the people who have, I think you're getting at experience, that idea of what level of experience do you need to do these roles? And I would say we need in the legislature, for instance, I want to see a range of experience. Yeah. I want to see some people that are coming in who are scientists, I want to see a meteorologist talking about the environment. I also want to see somebody, though, who has very little experience with that, but knows how that's going to come across to regular people. Mm-hmm. And so if that meteorologist starts to explain something and the person who doesn't know meteorology well is also on the committee, they can say, yeah, nobody in my neighborhood's going to understand that.
Right. Getting in the weeds.
We don't get that. Yeah. I actually do not understand that, what you're saying there. And so I think that if you don't have, you need to have, take the experiences that you have and really work them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, don't feel like you have to be extremely experienced. We need a range. We need a balance of that. We need somebody who is 22 and is in their very first job with a real paycheck. I want that person. I also want somebody who's retired and has had 8 jobs and now learned a few things from that. Mm-hmm. I think it's that. So everything that you've got probably can be leveraged to be successful.
Yeah.
So whatever you've got has value. And so you have to figure out, how do you use that? And lack of experience can be leveraged as much as experience is.
Yeah.
Now, you should know some stuff, though. I mean, but it's also, if you lack experience, I hope you do realize that you do lack experience and you know what you don't know.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of experience, don't assume that your experience transfers to other topics. And so know that when you go to a new topic, you're right, you're rookie again, and let yourself be a rookie again.
Well, that's the thing with like the whole political scene too. It's a dynamic environment to be involved in, because you might be having one thing to be doing at the beginning of the week, and then something happens during the middle of the week, and by the end of the week, you're doing something completely different. So,
oh my gosh, everything that worked my first year, it won't work now. Some of the reasons are because it was working my first year because we were in a certain place we were trying to get out of. So once we get out of that place, well, of course, those old tactics won't work anymore. And I came into an office that had been under really heavy attack. People were literally trying to shut it down. They were at the Supreme Court fighting for their very existence. And so my staff had built up a lot of survival tactics that were absolutely crucial in that moment. Things like, we're not going to spend a dime because we don't know what's going to happen next. And we've gone through bad layoffs. And so we're going to be penny wise and pound foolish. And that actually is our tactic right now, because control everything. Don't try anything. Keep your head down. Do not make big waves. And that was very appropriate for that moment. Actually, totally appropriate. However, once we get past that, now it'll hold it back, because now you're not going to try something new. You could not keep up with the moment. You could become out of date and irrelevant. But how do I tell somebody? It's like, hey, this survival tactic, for every reason you needed it then, is every reason why you can't use it now.
Yeah.
And so knowing that these are, just because you come with a good idea, if the good idea gets you what you want, now it may no longer be a good idea. And so I'm proud of the fact that those tactics that made sense my first year would hold us back now. And that's also a good time to look at shifting to a new leader.
Yeah.
My job was to do that turnaround. That was what I was really most engaged in. We turned it around. Well, this is a great time then to transfer.
Yeah.
Because I've got some of that in my head. I mean, I still am holding on to that. So now that we've gone to a new place, this is probably a good time for a new leader. So they don't, because I picked up some baggage along the way. You always do, especially when you come through a really difficult time. And that's one reason I support term limits.
Yeah.
It's because if you do everything right, well, then you got to stop. At a certain point, you got to be done. It's kind of like in labor, you say usually after a strike, 2 people quit or 2 people leave, and it should be the superintendent and the union president. Yeah. You can have done the best strike ever, but you know what? You should go. Because now that you've done this, you have this huge accomplishment. Your leadership is a different thing. It means something different. You are you really you symbolize something different. Your head changed. I mean, you changed. It might be a good time to transition at that point.
Yeah.
And because the better you did, the more likely it is for you to stop. Good for you to stop.
And right now you're having to grapple with that yourself, because you've recently announced that you're not running for re-election for the state auditor.
I know, and I was worried. I understood that the state was going to go through a period of mourning. I knew that there were people going to say, how's Minnesota going to go on? How's our country going to go?
Right.
Is the world going to make it? Is humanity going to make it? Anyway, I got to say, it is, you talk about all the humbling experiences. This job's already humbling because it's down the ballot. It's not as well known. But the idea of I knew how I would feel when I would say I'm not running again, because I stopped being president at one point. I said, hey, I'm done being president. I'm not going to run again. So of my local union. So I know kind of what it's like to say no, and you're not going to do it again. People say very nice things. They're so supportive. There were people who were very upset, but there is part of you that thinks, are you guys already over it? Oh my gosh! So you have to start talking about your successor. And people start to get excited about the next person, and they have to, because you got to get them in office. But then it's like, you seem really excited. I remember mentioning when I said I'm planning to not run again, but here are some candidates that are going to be in. Another reason I feel confident that I cannot run again is because there are some good people running. And then it's like, give me a minute, all right? Just give me 2 minutes of panic.
Right.
And then you could be happy about this other guy.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, if you got to kind of watch your ego, because it really, as much as you expect it, oh boy, when you're going through it, it's kind of wild.
Absolutely. But when you reflect back on your career as a state auditor, what would you say are some of your biggest accomplishments? Something that you look back on with pride?
There are a few things. I can go. The one that I really love that's super nerdy, but it's an indication of, I think, our office retaking its leadership role in local oversight. I would say over time, because of the attacks and lack of funding, all of these things, we kind of abdicated that role. And so the people that were deciding what are the rules for local accountability were the League of Cities and the Association of Minnesota Counties and all these groups that are terrific, but they're also siloed off. Cities, counties, township. They work together a lot, but there should be some place where it's an overarching thing, where it's like, okay, these are the groups that the people being audited are part of. You need to have some place where the auditors are coming together and also putting together their ideas. And that just wasn't happening anywhere. And so the way I knew we reclaimed that is when we got one line in one bill. Someone to put an audit bill in there. So you put the A word in one of your bills and you're going to get a visit from me. Because do not put the A word in without giving me a call. I might be able to save you $1 million in your fiscal note, because it's like, you don't want an audit. You don't need it. We already do this. Is that cool? It's like, okay, drop that word. Boom. You just saved $1 million.
Yeah.
And I do spend a lot of time telling people, ooh, it's not an audit you're looking for. We can do this cheaper. But somebody had put the word in there. And so we changed it. They had said it was based on, they wanted an audit based on generally accepted accounting principles. Now, if you hear that, it sounds like a throwaway line, like, oh, yeah, do it like accountants do it. It's a very specific term. It means something. It means you need to do an accrual-based audit, which is more expensive. The day-to-day work of an accrual-based accounting system is more expensive. And people didn't realize that they were making a very specific choice. So my big change was, every time you use that term, I want you to write it out as an acronym. GAAP. We call them GAAP audits.
Yep.
GAAP. It's all caps. And in parentheses, with caps, initial caps, say generally accepted accounting principles. Then people know it's not just a line. It's a thing. So when you see that, if you're copying that bill for the next bill, it's like, what is this? What do you mean by GAAP? Why are they abbreviating that? Oh, because it means something. Do you need it to be a GAAP audit? I don't even know what that is. Okay, then you could probably do cash basis. All right, then just say the word audit. Keep the word GAAP out.
Yeah.
And say a financial audit. There are and that was talking to people and us coming back together and finding those technical places where little words were making a big impact. And so then we were there to kind of get into the weeds of it. And we had not had that leadership role in audit for a long time. We've had it in pensions. Our pension work has had it. Our tax increment finance work has had it. But we needed to retake that for audit too, because honestly, we're the best people for it. And we owe Minnesotans that. So I'm super proud of that little line. That little line indicated. The other, I think, indication of success was the people who chose to run for this office, because I also wanted to make sure people understood what this office does. It's so confusing, and we'd always explained it in this very technical way that people weren't following. And so I really wanted to rebrand it so that people understood what our focus is, and that is local. When you hear the state auditor, I want you to think local first. Immediately think local. And then when I saw the candidates that were emerging, well, I've talked to 3 mayors about it. I've talked to a city councilor about it. I've talked to someone who worked in the federal government building tools that connected with local government. I'm like, okay, they get it. That message has finally gotten out that that's what we do. And local is important.
Absolutely.
And when I heard another major political leader virtually copy one of my speeches word for word. And he didn't know he was doing it because I had just gotten it deep enough into the atmosphere that it was considered just a standard line. It wasn't, nobody would realize that it came from me.
Yeah.
And so I started to realize we've gotten our message out. Local matters. Let's talk local. Keep local in front of your top of your mind. And that is, I'm really proud of that.
That is great. Yeah. And another aspect too, it seems like when it comes to the state auditor is your relationship with the legislature, with the other offices within the executive branch. Could you speak to your relationship to those two aspects of government as well?
Oh, I can also talk about how important those relationships are because, again, when I came into office, there were people trying to shut the place down, and so my predecessor, oh my goodness, I tell you what, be careful when you ever compare elected officials, particularly statewide elected officials, to each other, because we're all dealt very different hands.
Yeah.
And you always want to compare us to how we played the hand we were dealt.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at Rebecca Otto, you have to look at how do you compare to somebody who was under heavy fire, right? And so I think she played her hand as well as she could. It was such a tough hand to play. And she played it in a way that helped me when I came in. And so she did a lot of things that really helped me out when I came into office. But I was dealt a different hand. And one of that was the luxury of being able to rebuild relationships because I was new. And the relationships were absolutely frayed at best. And so I got to come in and say, okay, we need relationships. If we don't have them, they come for you. Because you always think, wow, if I lay off, if I maybe keep my staff super small next to me, I will be rewarded for being so frugal. Mm-hmm. No, you won't. If you don't roll deep enough, they act more like wolves. They're going to come and say, you're the weak one, and they're going to cull the herd. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to roll deep enough. If you go too thin, too alone, you go it alone, you're prey. Yeah. And that's all, again, you wish it wasn't like that, but I've seen that for years. So I knew I needed relationships. We needed kind of a booster club for the office. We needed, all these things. And so I started out, my very first meeting were with the counties that had been sued by our office. Yeah. As you can imagine, they weren't super thrilled with us.
Little
that
tense,
was
but
people wondered how those went, but it's like, we are Minnesotans, Mm-hmm. We know how to be passive aggressive.
Oh,
I mean, I went to those meetings. Did they have donuts there? Of course they did. Mm-hmm. Were we polite? Absolutely. One of my favorite first meetings was with Southwest Health and Human Services. They were planning to sue us so they could go and have an independent audit. We do an independent audit. I should say more precisely, one from a private firm.
Gotcha.
Now, they had been having some really big troubles. Mm-hmm. And so the guy, he comes in, and one of my favorite political officials ever, Charlie Sano. And so he's no taxes. I love that guy. He was just brilliant. But he walks in, he says, nice to meet you. We're going to sue you. And I said, well, great to meet you too. We're going to win. All right. And from there we could talk. And this is the kind of guy where it's like, you could kind of go at it. Yeah. And you could have those conversations and be honest with each other.
A little playful banter, never hurt anyone.
He didn't take it, he knew things that weren't personal. Mm-hmm. And he didn't take things that weren't personally. And so we could have a real conversation. I learned that from being treasurer of the AFL-CIO. When you work, I come out of female-dominated professions, except for when I was a kid working in my dad's shop. But it's a different kind of communication. What I learned from the building trades mm-hmm. was just how to say it. I also sold steel for a while, and the guys out in the plant were so helpful because they would just say it. I'm like, I learned to really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I can just say it back and we could be done. There wasn't all this unsaid stuff and things in the background. Oh no, if a guy thought I was literally evil is what he said. He told me right up front, and I could talk about, we talked about it. And by the end, yeah, we bought each other drinks at the bar after, right?
Right.
It was, and that was wonderful. And so I learned that there. And so when I saw that, it's like, oh, I know this opportunity. Mm-hmm. There's a real opportunity here. Here are people who will tell me things that nobody else is going to tell me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be able to throw things back to them and really vet things. And so that relationship was great. The counties that met with me that again were angry. Boy, I learned a lot about that issue because I'd only heard it from the inside of the office. Mm-hmm. And to learn it from their perspective, it was like, oh, okay. I talked to the legislator who put it forward because he actually, at one point, was a lobbyist that is in our building. And he was doing a cookout, like a tailgating party for the end of the session out in the parking lot here.
Really?
He brought his camper and a grill, and so we're all waiting around for all the lobbyists here, and so they'd all kind of hang out and I hung out there with them, and it's like, oh, when I realized what he thought was going to happen next, I had a lot more respect for his position.
Yeah,
because I didn't realize that he'd had a longer position out there, and so it's like, okay, well then that gives us our next option. And so if you can go into those relationships and know that everybody has something to teach you. I rebuilt them with our stakeholder groups. League of Cities, the Associated Minnesota Counties, again, pretty afraid because they'd sued counties. Also, they met with me super early and they were so open, and so helpful. That was a huge gift. The first stakeholder group I met with were the Association of Minnesota Counties. And they sat down and they were just invaluable. And so I think go worst first, right? Go where it's tough. It's like which meetings are you worried about? Okay, start with those.
Yeah,
absolutely start with those. And I'm glad I did, because then when COVID came around, we had enough relationships to get through it. And one thing we noticed when we were analyzing what was happening during COVID, it's one of our reports that came out, was that we saw that the entities that had the best relationships with similar entities, or all the relationships, were the ones that weathered COVID the best, because they had some contacts, they had people to ask questions of, they had people to bounce ideas off of, they had other people that had skills that they didn't have, and that helped a lot. Minnesota, I think that we were able to get funding to our local level quicker than some other states, and better than some other states, was because the MMB, our Minnesota Management and Budget, where our what effectively acts like our treasurer in Minnesota, that group had connections with these stakeholder groups. These stakeholder groups were very, very well organized. A couple of them, over 100 years old. So they had some real infrastructure. Everybody, we all knew each other's phone numbers. We could text each other. We could connect in a tough time. And that was huge. So yeah, I think once you come in, you talk to all your people, right? If you're coming in as a new leader, and then figure out what other relationships you need. Yeah. Build those. And then once you know your people, you've got relationships, then you can start looking at ideas. Then you can start moving forward, because that's what you need to check any idea anyway. And so if we get an idea, I've got a whole group of people will tell me, when I go testify, I know exactly what every group is going to say, because we connected. I know who I'm going to tick off. So if we put forward a bill, and I might call them up and say, oh, heads up, I think you're going to hate this. And so I want you to know early. So here we go.
And people respect that.
Exactly. And sometimes they say, well, you change one word and I won't hate it. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, I can do that. Shoot, I can do that. Or they could be like, you know what? I'm going to push against that. I'll probably lose that, but I understand, and it won't kill me.
Yeah, if it's not a surprise, it is taken as poorly.
Well, you can also take it but you can also be open. They might be able to save you. Yeah. If you don't share it, people will yell at you before you run off the cliff. When people are yelling at you, cliff, you can say, okay, no, I'm cool. I'm going to run off this cliff, or at least you kind of know what the debate will be. And a lot of times you can fix problems before you get there. Yeah. And so that's another reason why, if I saw legislation I didn't like, I tried to get in early, get in there right away. Also, why you need to have good relationships with legislators. They have to know that you're going to be a fair broker here. So I would walk in and say, here's the deal. I see your bill. I'm concerned about this. I'm going to speak against it if this is in here. And let me tell you what I'm going to say. But if you just did this, we could maybe fix that. And then we could have a conversation. And a lot of times you can come in. A sign of a really good leader might be someone who comes in and a bill is presented and you immediately have an amendment. They have a maker's amendment, right? The maker's amendment that comes in and says, okay, I want to change these 4 words right away. It's like, okay, great. Is your bill in the form that you want? Yes. That means somebody saw the bill. They worked on something. They tightened something up so that by the time the bill comes in, it's in a better place. And then you have a real debate. So that's my goal. I want people to come in. I want people to know well ahead of time what's going to happen. If I'm on a lot of boards, I'm on the Public Employee Retirement Association Board, Minnesota Housing Board, Historical Society Board, State Board of Investment. I do a lot of board work. Yeah. And so where there's money, my job is to say, let's talk about the money. Yeah. So I'm the money girl on the board, right? Yep. And so, but if I'm going to board and I see something and I know a staff member like, ooh, I have some problems with this, I'm going to call that staff member and tell them the question that I'm going to ask, particularly if I know it's going to be uncomfortable for them. Right. And ideally, a lot of times if you do that, they'll solve the problem before you even get there. And everything goes smoothly. And so, yeah, sometimes when you see things running smoothly, it means people are either checked out, or it could mean they're very, very good, and they prep and they get things ahead. And so my goal is I don't want anybody to be surprised. If we can avoid surprises, I don't do surprises. Now, surprises can be a tactic, right? When people are surprised, when they're unprepared, Yeah, you can look better than them. Yeah, you can beat them in a contest. And so if you're trying to win a debate, if this is a game to you, surprise is absolutely a tool. If you're here just to solve problems, then you want to avoid surprise at all costs.
Yeah. And that's one thing. You're talking about the importance of relationships too. We were talking about how we'd crossed paths previously when I was interning for State Senator Eric Putnam. And while I was in the office just across the street here, you notice how the party that's in the majority, their office is one level higher than the party that's in the minority, which is on level 2.
Oh, and then within each party, the most experienced has the best view.
Yep.
Least experienced actually has a view that I can see out of my window right now.
Right, exactly.
And it's like there is so much. Okay, if you're thinking it's like, oh my gosh, this sounds like a cafeteria, right? My favorite line is they say, "What is that? The legislature is just high school with better clothes."
Oh yeah, 100%.
Is it?
Oh my gosh,
God.
that's my biggest takeaway from working there.
They always say the best first question is, "What did you hear?"
Yeah, exactly.
So
the gossip
is currency.
It's terrible.
And it's like, okay, these are real. You're not going to change it, but you can still even navigate those kind of icky structures in the best way, right? Like me, it's the idea of like, I'm going to call and tell you ahead of time. I don't want you to be surprised. And so if you are someone who doesn't look like they're going to do a gotcha, if you're someone who says, okay, here's the deal. I walked in with a bill about municipal liquor stores. And I said, well, here's the deal. If you make this change, this is a good change because you're actually you're taking away some of the oversight. But if you add this on the other end, you'll have shifted the oversight into where the risk is greatest. So yes, you can have fewer people having audits, but the ones that do all have to have the full gap audit where, if you're a liquor store, the way you do business, that should be a gap or audit should be based on an accrual method of counting, not a cash basis of counting. And I said, but to be clear, I think that's the better way to do it. And these groups are going to be mad at you. So if you do that, I can tell you right now that these 8 people will call and be mad at you about that. So I just want you to go in with your eyes open. And so if you give them that heads up, I got it through because I told them where the landmines were and said, I'm going to be honest, they're going to be mad. You might be able to talk them out of it, but I want you to know right away where the risk is for you. Well, then if a legislator goes in, I've come in and said, this is a great bill. It's terrific. There's nothing wrong with it. And they go in and all of a sudden they've got a room full of people furious with them. And you could have told them, oh, you'll never get another bill through again.
Right.
So we're getting back to some things I learned in improv. I think the best training I ever had was comedy improv. And I've never performed, right? I just took the class to be a better teacher at the time. And what it made me was I'm far better at pretty much everything. And one of the lines, and I won't say this word, they always tell you, don't stick it to your partner. Put a more spicy word in there if you could. That is a very common phrase in comedy improv, and that is if you don't make your partner look good, you won't look good. If you make your partner look good, you both look good. If you don't, you stick it to your partner, you stuck it to yourself too. You both will look terrible. So the idea of whoever your scene partner is, you know what? Don't mess with them. If you try to make them look good, you're going to get a better result. And so that's my job is if you're presenting something, I want you to look knowledgeable. I want you to look prepared. I want you to understand my position. I want to understand yours. And it makes it more boring. It takes out some of the drama.
Politics should be boring, though.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'll tell you.
It should be boring.
I'm going to tell a secret on here. So always good to tell your secrets through a microphone.
Oh, of course.
And my secret is I kind of don't watch the floor debates.
Oh,
I get nothing out of the floor debates.
It's all performative.
That's a show. I sometimes have it in the background if I know something is going to come up and it's going to be entertaining. But you know what? By the way, thank you, all of you who do watch it and summarize them for us. Some of the staff that's paid to watch it, and also journalists that do it for me. Thank you. But yeah, that is the least productive place in the world, and so I don't watch it. It's like, okay, here's your fight, here's your drama. I was listening to Eric Putnam's podcast episode, by the way, which I loved.
Thank you.
I encourage you all to go back and watch episode 13, I think
something like that. I'm starting to lose track, which is a good thing.
I know, it's exciting.
The ones I've recorded.
So good, but he would talk about how people, it's like, I know they don't believe that, but they say it on the floor. I'm like, you know what, then ignore it. And so because I ignore it, I don't ever feel like I'm walking into a place I like people better, frankly. I don't feel like I'm walking into a place with an enemy because I haven't really given that a lot of space in my brain. I'm just going for the result. And so I focus on the committee meetings where people are asking real questions. I focus on the one-on-one meetings I'm having. I'm focusing on what I'm hearing from other people that are testifying. That's where your solutions are.
Yeah.
And so now it doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way it is right now. So I'll tell you, the best thing I did for my mental health was to stop watching floor debate.
Yeah, stop watching the floor. Watch the committees instead. That's where all the work gets done.
And what I love is I got this great tip from a lobbyist was that you should that they wait until the committee's over, right? If they don't have to be there in the moment, especially if they're not taking testimony or you're not actually going to do anything till the next meeting. So they wait till it's done so they can watch it at 1.5 or 2 double speed. And it saves a lot of time.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that that everything's on YouTube now because I can watch it from wherever. Because if you're in the room as an elected official, you can be dragged up there. They see you and say, "I'd like the auditor to come to the testifier's table," and you're like, "Oh no, I don't want to do this." So if you're not wanting to do that, don't be there. And so I will sit here and watch it. But then if you see something that you're like, "Oh, what is going?" Then I can run over there and look at them.
Yeah,
I've done that before too. It's like I'm watching y'all, okay? And so I'll go over there. And so there's some great tools that are out there. But the better relationships you have, that's where you get those tools. I know this because I know a lot of people, and people tell me their tricks. So again, the wider your network, just the more tips you hear, and you'll just get better and better.
100%, 100%. And you mentioned how you were a teacher before you became the state auditor and got involved in union work. What similarities did you see in your job as the state auditor when you compared to your time as a teacher as well?
Oh, that's a really interesting one. And being a teacher is really, I think, was the impetus to get very politically involved. Now, my first political job was when I was 14. The first job with a paycheck I ever got, with our actual printed out paycheck, was calling, asking people, "Hello." I was 14. I felt like such a star because of all these college students around us. Right. It was so cool. It was kind of at night, and I'm in this cool happening office. And I sit there and ask, "So, if the election were held today, would you vote for A, the Democrat, Michael Dukakis, or B?" And that was my first thing, and I thought that was glamorous. So if you can start your first job with phone calls, and if you can start to like those, you are invincible. Yeah. That's nobody's favorite job.
No, it's not. Those are not easy, and those are not fun sometimes.
And I thought that was terrific. Yeah. And so that's where I started. And then, but I think the place that got me really into solidifying how I was going to be active was teaching, because you start out in teaching. We talk about the things you've got to be good at. You have to have instructional skills. You have to understand your discipline, your subject area. You have to understand how to do proper evaluation, and you also need to be able to set the right atmosphere in your classroom. But there's one more thing. That's the idea description of what teaching is. But L is leadership, because once you've been in there a long time, now you want to stand up for your students. And because every single decision in a classroom goes through a political process. Every pencil's decision has been touched by a state legislator or a congressperson or a U.S. senator or a school board member or a county commissioner or a city council member. Every single decision in your classroom is there. So if you really care about your students, you have to be involved, because that is such a big part of their experience. So you owe it to your students to go tell your story. Otherwise, these decision makers don't know how to make the right decision. Right. And so we owe it to them to do that. And so as a result, then you start getting more involved, and that really pulls a lot of people in because you start to see the process, and you then see that bill and how it plays out in your classroom that next year. Mm-hmm. You feel every bill. And so it's really hard to say, I care about you. This law is wrong. What do we do? You don't throw up your hands. You go fix it. Yep. You know, and that's why so many teachers have to go take that next step. Mm-hmm. And that kind of got me into that. Sadly, some of the techniques I learned as a middle school teacher, as mature as we all get, we all hold on to a few adolescent bad
Yeah,
habits.
absolutely.
And so knowing them when you're walking, again, they're easier to take from an adolescent than from an adult, but it's good to know those. There are tactics that are helpful. If I kind of see, sometimes I look at the legislature like my students, I'm going, okay, he needs to win this one. I'm going to let him win this one.
Yeah.
And I know things are tough at home. The polls are bad for him. So, let's let him have this.
Right.
If you start to see everybody as your student or everybody as your family, then you know when to concede. Then you can use concession, which is this incredible not only rhetorical device, but also this incredible organizing tactic, is concede when you can. And it's disarming. It is it's relationship building. And if you can use that tactic well, you can really get ahead of it. There are people down there, I'm not getting to debate with them. They're going to out-debate me. Yeah. They are better at that. Partly because I don't want to debate, I want to solve. But if you can use concession effectively, it's like, okay, I'll let you win this one. You love winning debates. I just want to get this thing passed. You can get what you want. I can get what I want. Right. We can do a classic, getting to yes, Harvard negotiation project, win-win situation.
Yes.
And so I think that's something I learned as an educator. When to give somebody else a win. I learned the best thing I learned as a labor leader was I was a labor leader when they were really dismantling a lot of labor protections. So we learned that the best defense against that was to have a strong relationship with our members. Mm-hmm. So that's when we went back to our roots as unionists and talked about what do people use when they organize a union in the first place? And that's these one-to-one conversations. And again, it seems like really obvious, but people don't do them. And it's scary because if you do enough one-to-one conversations, you're going to get ideas that will make you change course. And a lot of people don't like change. So when you go into them, it's easier if you avoid those conversations and you never have to change course because you haven't heard from your people what they really want.
Right.
But if you can go into it and be comfortable with change, those one-on-one conversations are so important. And so I use that with the legislature, of course. Every time you can, and really don't wait and try to embarrass them in a committee meeting. Go talk to them early, try to fix it ahead. And also one-to-ones with all of your staff, every one of your staff. You've got to talk to everybody who's got something you need to hear. And so I think from every job I've ever had, I've taken something that has been really valuable here.
Yeah, that's great. And that what it comes down to, it seems like at the end of the day, in your position, just like in going through life, is just relationships, the importance of them, and just treat people the way you'd want to be treated. I feel like it kind of just gets boiled down to that more or less.
I wonder sometimes. I don't always treat people the way I want to be treated, to be honest.
Okay.
I try to treat people the way they want to be treated because I'm starting to learn that my perspective is so wrong. I look at, and I see that all the time, where people are saying, they're treating somebody in a way that it's like, well, I'd understand what this would mean. It's like, yeah, they don't. So you know what? If I'm going to go talk to Representative Nash, all right, you go in, you be honest, you fight hard, but do not lie to him. Do not hold anything back. Don't try to get him when he's quite a good debater. So you're not going to anyway. But get ahead of it and be genuine about what you want to do, and just do not lie. There are other people that would rather you really couch it and really wrap it in a lot of bubble wrap and a lot of cotton wool, just make it cozy. And they really want that because they really value relationships, and that's the kind of relationship they like. That's how they feel respected. Nash is going to feel respected by you just coming right out and talking to him. There are a bunch of Democrats, particularly my friends, where I start out reminding them how much I like them, because those relationships are really important. And that I actually, especially I think sometimes with women and women of color, you better go in and why don't you right away remind them, because in that process, you're reminding yourself that they are smart and capable and powerful, because too many people approach them as if they're not any of those things. So when I go in there, it's like I'm going to demonstrate to you that I know that, and it gets me in the right headspace, and it honors you, and it shows that I have the right that I understand you, and so I look at how do they want to be treated and try to speak their language. And same with people in this office. I'm the designated extrovert, right? My people do not communicate like I do. And they have been so tolerant of me. Oh, they've taught me so many things. I've learned so much. I would say, oh, don't you want to be invited? No, we do not want to be invited. We do not want to go. It's like, well, will you feel left out? please leave us out. And it's like, okay. And so I'm learning that's how they want to be. That feels like respect to them. So if I want to communicate respect to them, I'm going to look at how they want to be treated. And so I love that you brought that up because I have had to relearn a lot of things. And that was one of the things I had to relearn.
That's great because I never thought of it from that perspective. But that's what this whole podcast, networking thing is about, is just seeing things from a different perspective, thinking about it, and how you go about that in a different situation. That totally makes sense from where you're coming from.
Right.
I noticed we're coming a little short on time here. I just had 2 more questions for you.
You bet.
What is one critique you would give of the position that you hold, or one thing you wish you could have changed in your time as state auditor?
Oh, there are so many opportunities for this office. And so one of it is our basic structure. I look back, and what I wish I could do is go back in time and change what happened in when they got rid of the treasurer. In Minnesota, we decided we didn't need a treasurer. And the treasurer at the time, his idea was combine the auditor, the treasurer, and the state auditor into a comptroller and put all those roles together. And I think there's a balance issue. My office is small compared to the other constitutional officers. And those are the officers defined in the Constitution. That's governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and secretary of state, and then auditor. And so when you have that kind of mismatch in those offices, the structures really get weird. They just get really hard to navigate. So I wish that the Treasury had come and been organized in that way. But I can't go back to that. And so I think the idea of how do we structure ourselves so that we both get the right level of influence? Because if you are going in and you are auditing people and you got no pull, who cares what I tell them, right? And so I think the more we can continue to elevate our work, one way to do that is to elevate local government's work. If their work is elevated, so is mine. And so I think I was looking, it's like our office needs more respect. I realized, no, it's not our office that needs more respect. It's the people we serve that need more respect. Every time we raise the respect of the local government level, we raise respect to this office. So you know what? Why not do that? That's going to have other benefits as well. So I think just continuing to raise the level of respect and attention on local government is the best thing that we can continue to do. The more we do that, the better it works for everybody. That's great.
That's great. The last question I have for you here would be, what advice would you give to young people interested in entering politics?
Oh, yes. Now that I'm 55, it's funny. At this age, my dad always used to say this. He says, I still feel 14. And I think about how I feel. I still feel like a kid. I feel like the idea of advice, I'm like, me? What? And I look around at this age, you start to look around and say, oh my gosh, I remember when we started out. I remember when we were at that convention and then goofing off during the speeches, and it's like, now we're in charge. How did this happen? It's just amazing. Some of it is to be ready to go where you're needed. That's developed into where I do it. I'm going to go where I'm needed, and don't assume you know where you're needed, and be available to go where you're needed. The world is changing so quickly. You don't know where I never would have guessed. I wouldn't have guessed a year before I announced my first candidacy that I was going to run for this office. But you've got to be open to those opportunities to go where you're needed, because that's good for the whole movement, whatever movement you care about. Next, I would say, don't sleep on local government. Don't look at that as a step down. That is a place where you actually can enact real policy and then directly see the results. If you want to go out and figure out how to actually make good policy, go local, try it. You can actually directly see what it did. And you can say, oh, yep, that didn't work. Or you can say, oh, I'm going to change this, or it works so well, we've got to get everybody to do it. And the final thing, the best training I ever had was comedy improv. And I know some of you are saying, oh no, I'm not doing that. Well, here's the deal. You can take classes without performing. And I'm taking classes, and we just did the exercises you learn to be an improviser and to be funnier. You learn these really important ideas, like the idea that, make your partner look good. Yeah. We all know this, say yes. We've heard of that. But there's other ones like know who you are and be more of that. Find out who you are, make it bigger, 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 bigger. Also, things like change is fuel. If you have no change, that scene goes nowhere. And in real life, if there's no change, nothing goes anywhere.
Right.
So if you could see change as an opportunity, if you can see that tough question from a journalist is, oh, good, I finally get to say the thing I need to say. And that's another thing. Everything's a gift. Look at everything is a gift. Everything's a gift. Everything's a gift. The guy who said he was going to sue me turned out to be one of the best gifts I had. And so when you start to see that, all you see are gifts. All you have is opportunity. And then the final thing you learn, the most important thing you learn in improv is the truth is funny. Mm-hmm. You want to be funny? Just tell the truth. And boy, the truth is whatever it needs to be. So if you want to be funny, just be honest. And not only are you going to do better work, find better solutions, you're going to be funny too. Yeah. So there you go.
There's the advice for all the young people out there interested in entering politics. Well, State Auditor Blaha, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service as our Minnesota State Auditor, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh, and thanks for telling our stories. That as we lose local coverage, as we lose more journalists, the people who are out there telling the stories firsthand are so important to us. So thank you for doing what you're doing too.
Of course. Thank you for listening to Youthful Perspectives. I found the auditor's perspective on the importance of maintaining healthy relationships to foster change was important not just for the field of government, but for any profession. Her pride and emphasis on the importance of local government is something we should all consider when deciding whether those elections are worth going to the polls for. As State Auditor Blaha would tell you, they are. And finally, I appreciated the notion of treating people the way they'd want to be treated, otherwise known as the Platinum Rule. At the heart of this rule resides the ability to be empathetic, especially when dealing with someone you disagree with. Having this conversation with State Auditor Blaha and recognizing the successes she's achieved through this process, I strive to discover how I can implement this rule into my own life. Perhaps you can too. This is Mason Bierbaum, signing off.